My name is Selena Hart. I'm 36, and I've always been the one who carries the quiet weight of my family. Mornings, I work at a small design studio. Afternoons, I meet clients in coffee shops, sketching their dreams on napkins. Evenings, I teach a weekend painting class online. I live in a modest townhouse with my boyfriend Daniel, a high school teacher with a laugh that hits exactly the right note, and our adopted daughter, Lila, 8, who insists that all clouds are cotton monsters. I never expected the secret my parents were keeping would shatter everything I believed about family. It started with an ordinary Sunday dinner at my parents' house. Roast chicken, overcooked green beans, Dad's special mashed potatoes stirred with a wooden spoon he guards like a relic. My younger brother, Evan, is late as usual. He breezes in with a bakery bag and a grin, kissing my mother's cheek and ruffling Lila's hair. "How's my favorite lady?" he asks. Lila, perched on the edge of her seat with crayons scattered around her, says, "I'm drawing you a ticket for speeding." Evan laughs. The room feels normal. Except it isn't. A week earlier, I had discovered an envelope in the mail, a property deed under my parents' trust. The primary resident? Evan Hart. My hands had trembled as I read the fine print. They had quietly bought him a house, while when it came to helping Lila with her upcoming heart surgery, my parents had insisted, "She's adopted, not fully family, if we're being honest." I swallowed the words that rose in my throat, but I couldn't swallow the betrayal. Dinner began with soft chatter. Work stories, neighborhood updates, the usual. I watched my parents' eyes light up at Evan, the golden child, the easy laugh, while I carried Lila on my hip, guiding crayons across her paper. I tried to stay calm. I tried to pretend that everything was fine. Then came the moment, the stone that began the wall. Mom said brightly, "Speaking of homes, Evan, tell them about the place." "What place?" I asked, my fork paused midair. Evan smiled, shy and smug at once. "Just a little bungalow near the lake. Needs work, but bones are good." I froze. My parents nodded like this was normal, like giving one child stability while relegating another to struggle was some kind of quiet morality play. I wanted to shout, to demand answers. Instead, I took a breath and watched Lila, her small hand clutching a crayon, completely unaware of the calculations and judgments swirling around her. Later that night, after driving home in silence with Daniel, I opened the envelope again. An insurance binder, addressed not to me or Daniel, but to Evan. A house, a trust, my parents' approval. And yet when it came to Lila, they had only offered words, prayers, vague sympathies, a subtle reminder that she wasn't fully family. I felt a familiar weight settle in my chest, one I had carried since childhood. I had always been the responsible one. When Evan broke a neighbor's window, I gave up my lawn mowing money to cover the cost. When he needed rides, I became the chauffeur. When life demanded someone steady, it was always me. And now, decades later, nothing had changed. I made a decision that night. I would no longer allow silence to be my currency in a house that weighed love by blood. I would protect my daughter and my family, even if it meant burning the bridges I had been raised to maintain. This is how it begins. The following Sunday, I walked up to my parents' front door with a folder clutched tightly in my hand. Inside, the hospital's estimate for Lila's surgery, a recent photo of her riding a carousel, and a copy of the insurance binder addressed to Evan. Mom opened the door, a practiced smile on her face. "Selena, we weren't expecting a pop-in." "I wasn't planning a visit," I said, voice steady. "But I need to show you something." Dad appeared behind her, adjusting his glasses. I held out the folder. "This is for Lila, and this," I tapped the binder, "is for Evan. Can you explain why one gets a house and the other silence?" Mom blinked, her smile faltering. "We're just trying to help." "Help?" I interrupted, my tone controlled but cutting. "You helped Evan buy a house while Lila waits for surgery, and somehow, in your eyes, that's equal?" Dad stiffened. "We're doing what we can." "No," I said firmly. "You're doing what you want. You're choosing favorites. And I'm done letting that slide." Evan leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, smirking like he was watching a drama unfold. "Selena, it's not like that." "It is like that," I said, meeting his eyes. "Every late-night call I've answered for you, every mistake I've cleaned up, every problem I've solved while you chased your whims. You've been living in a world of choice while I've been paying for it in silence." Mom gasped. "Selena, please, don't speak like this in our home." "This isn't about manners," I said, my voice low but unwavering. It's about respect. Lila deserves that respect. I deserve that respect. And I will not leave this house without setting it straight. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, the wood creaking under the weight of years of control. Careful. I am careful, I said. Careful about protecting my family. From favoritism, from neglect, from the kind of conditional love that tells a child she isn't enough because she wasn't born into the right body or the right family tree. Lila is enough, and I will do this myself if I have to. We will pay for her surgery. We will not take your money with strings attached. We will not co-sign anything for Evan, and we will not be treated like we are lesser for standing up. Mom covered her mouth, a tremor in her eyes. Dad's jaw worked like he was chewing nails. Evan stepped forward, trying humor. Selena, you're burning bridges over a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I cut him off. I heard the words. I saw the deeds. You have your life because of their choices. My daughter and I will have ours without your interference. That's the line, Evan. Don't test it. A silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator seemed to sigh, the hum of electricity heavy in the air. Mom whispered, if you walk out, don't come back asking for anything. And I won't, I said. But don't mistake silence for submission anymore. I'm closing the account where I pay with my quiet. I'm closing the door where you enter with conditions. And I'm closing the loop where Evan messes up and I fix it. Evan tried one last time, desperation seeping through his usual smirk. Selena, you're overreacting. No, I said. I'm finally reacting. To all of it. To every choice, every slight, every time you decided someone else mattered more than my daughter. I gathered the folder, set the hospital estimate back inside for them to see, and walked to the door. Mom called my name, the same way you call a dog about to bolt into the street. I didn't turn. I stepped outside, into air that felt lighter than it had in decades. When I got home, Daniel hugged me longer than usual. Lila slept, chest rising and falling in a rhythm I would never take for granted. That night, my phone buzzed relentlessly with family group texts, criticism, lectures, and veiled guilt trips. I ignored them. I had learned long ago that my daughter's safety and our peace were more important than appeasing adults who couldn't see past their own hierarchy. I made another list, like a map to navigate the storm. No loans, no co-signing. One channel of contact, email. Respect for Lila mandatory during visits. Late night calls from Evan, ignored. Daniel kissed the top of my head and whispered, I like you, Selena. You're boring in a brave way. Boring is fine, I said. Brave is necessary. That night, I slept. Real sleep. The kind where you wake and the world doesn't feel like a debt you can never repay. The following week was quiet in the way that feels heavy before a storm. Daniel and I stuck to our routines. Morning coffee, school drop-offs, late-night work shifts, and small victories like Lila finally spelling her name correctly on the fridge magnets. But even in that routine, tension lingered like an uninvited guest. Evan called twice, both times ignored. The third time, he showed up at our door with a bag of groceries, a forced smile, and an air of casual urgency. Selena, I just wanted to... Evan, I said, voice calm but firm. You're here. I'm listening. But remember the rules. Respect for Lila. One channel of communication. No more surprises. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Lila drawing in the corner. Right. Respect. Got it. Inside, I watched him move like a man trying to navigate someone else's house without touching anything valuable. Every gesture betrayed his unease. One misplaced hand on the counter, one too long look at the picture of Lila on the wall. I let him settle in, because ignoring wasn't cruelty, it was protection. He tried to make conversation, asking about school, about the city, about how Lila was adjusting after her surgery. I answered politely, carefully, but I kept the focus on facts, never emotion. I wasn't giving him the opportunity to manipulate. Later, after he left, I sat with Daniel in the quiet apartment. He held my hand tightly. How do you do it? He asked. How do you keep calm with him? I exhaled, letting the tension drain. You don't, I said. You just protect what matters and let the rest go. But the next challenge arrived unexpectedly. A letter in the mail, formal and precise, from a lawyer representing Evan. He was demanding to be involved in Lila's medical decisions, citing vague family rights and legal technicalities. I read it once, then again, letting the words sink. My heart raced, not from fear, but from clarity. This was exactly why we had set boundaries. Daniel stood behind me, eyes narrowing. He's testing us. I nodded. Testing, yes. But we've prepared for this. No threats, no manipulation will make us compromise our daughter's safety or our dignity. We responded in kind, drafting a letter through our lawyer. We cited the adoption agreement, our parental rights, and the medical privacy laws protecting Lila. Evan's claims were legally null, but emotionally, I knew the confrontation would sting him. Then came the subtle, harder battles. Family gatherings, holiday invitations, and social media posts. Evan posted photos of his new house, subtly flaunting wealth and independence. He tagged distant relatives, hinting at achievements meant to provoke guilt. I scrolled once, paused, then closed the app. I wasn't interested in their version of success. One evening, Daniel and I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing Lila's school project. She wanted to build a model of a treehouse. I laughed, pushing a tiny ladder into place. "You're going to make the best treehouse ever." She looked up at me, her little face serious. "Mama, will they come see me?" I hesitated. The question wasn't just about Evan. It was about the world's judgment, about bloodlines and favoritism. "They might," I said slowly, "but it won't matter. What matters is that you know you are loved, and you know we are your family." Her small hand reached for mine, squeezing tightly. That's when I realized something crucial. Every boundary I enforced, every argument I faced, every emotional battle was for moments like this, for Lila to grow without fear that she wasn't enough. The days rolled on, each one a small victory of normalcy and stability. Evan eventually stopped showing up uninvited, settling into a pattern of awkward calls that we kept within the legal and emotional boundaries we set. Mom and Dad sent messages, cautiously polite, but I no longer felt the need to engage. One night, as I tucked Lila into bed, she whispered, "Mama, do you think I'm a good girl?" I kissed her forehead, heart full. "The best girl," I said. "Always remember that." And for the first time in years, I felt the weight of my parents' hierarchy lift. It wasn't gone, not entirely. But our little family, Daniel, Lila, and I, was stronger than it had ever been. Summer arrived with a heat that made the city shimmer, as if everything beneath the asphalt was trying to escape. I had convinced myself the season would be a reprieve from the tension, but life has a way of testing patience when you least expect it. It started with a text from my mother. Simple, polite, almost harmless. "Selena, we need to talk. Can we come by tomorrow?" I stared at the screen, feeling the familiar churn of anxiety and resolve. Daniel peeked over my shoulder. "Are you going to say yes?" I typed back carefully, "Yes, but we'll sit in the living room, no surprises." The next afternoon, Mom and Dad arrived, faces carefully neutral, hands carrying nothing but themselves, and a faint scent of perfume and cologne, an invisible armor of civility. Evan trailed behind them, looking smaller than usual, carrying a bag that seemed unnecessary. We sat in the living room. Lila played nearby, blissfully absorbed in coloring. Her presence was my shield, my reason, my declaration. Nothing they said would diminish her place in our home. Mom started, "We didn't mean to hurt you, Selena, about the dinner, about what we said." I let her words hang in the air for a beat longer than comfortable. "You meant it," I said softly. "Every word. You just didn't expect me to hear it and act on it." Dad cleared his throat. "We just wanted to help Evan. We thought you understood." "I understood perfectly," I interrupted, calm but unflinching. "You've been clear about who counts in this family, who deserves stability, who is fully family. Lila is my daughter. You cannot and will not diminish that." Evan shifted in his seat. For a moment, I saw hesitation, a crack in the facade of arrogance he always wore around my parents. I didn't post that photo to hurt anyone," he said, voice low. "I just wanted to share something. I thought you'd be proud." I shook my head. Pride isn't measured in social media posts. It's measured in action, and your action has been consistent, putting yourself before responsibility, flaunting favors given to you while ignoring the needs of those who have nothing to do with your comfort. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the walls themselves were listening. Mom's eyes glistened with tears she couldn't quite hide. "Selena, we just thought we were doing the right thing." "You were doing what felt right to you," I said. "Not what was fair, not what was necessary." I stood and walked to the kitchen, pulling the folder from the table where I had kept it since Lila's surgery. The papers inside were neat, orderly, a record of months of planning, work, and sacrifice. I laid them down before them. "This is everything we did for Lila," I said. "Every appointment, every payment, every sleepless night. And none of it was yours to judge, manipulate, or diminish. I am telling you now. The line is drawn. You will not interfere in our family again." Mom tried to speak, but I held up my hand. "No, this isn't about forgiveness. This is about clarity. Respect the boundaries, or you will have no part of Lila's life. Understand?" Their faces told me they did. Reluctantly, uncomfortably. But they did. Evan sat quietly, finally absorbing the weight of responsibility for himself, not just for appearances. Before they left, I made one last statement. "We love you because you are our parents, but love does not excuse disrespect. We will act in Lila's best interests, always. That is non-negotiable." I closed the door behind them. The apartment felt lighter, almost sacred. Daniel hugged me from behind. Lila peeked out from her coloring corner, eyes wide. "I did it, Mama?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered. "We did it, together." For the first time, the air in our home was ours alone. The old hierarchies, the subtle manipulations, the favoritism, they no longer had power here. We had claimed our space, defined our family, and protected the child who deserved nothing less than unwavering love. And as Lila laughed, spinning around with her crayons like a tiny whirlwind of joy, I realized some battles aren't about victory over others. They're about the victory of keeping your family intact, unbroken, and sacred. The days after the confrontation were quiet in a way that felt almost foreign. The city hummed outside our windows, traffic and sirens, and the occasional laughter of neighbors drifting up like a soundtrack to our own peace. I spent mornings in the kitchen, making pancakes with Lila, Daniel leaning against the counter sipping coffee. His presence, a steady reminder that we were building our life on choices we made together. I checked the mail with deliberate calm. No more envelopes filled with hidden agendas or condescending offers. No more notes that weighed like judgments. The world outside continued its chaos, but inside the rhythm was ours, predictable, nurturing, real. One afternoon, Evan came by. He hesitated on the doorstep as if unsure if the invitation extended to him or if he even deserved it. I didn't answer immediately. Daniel gave me a look, a silent question. I took a deep breath. "Come in," I said. He stepped into our living room, eyes lowered. I wanted to apologize," he said, voice quiet. "For everything. For taking advantage of Mom and Dad, for ignoring you, for hurting Lila by ignoring her needs." I felt a twinge of relief, not because he finally spoke, but because the recognition was genuine. "Thank you," I said. "Apologies only matter if your actions follow. You can start by respecting the space we've built." He nodded, finally looking up. Lila, sensing the tension, ran to him and tugged at his sleeve. "You can sit with me, Uncle Evan, but you can't touch my crayons." He chuckled softly, the first sound of ease I'd heard from him in months. "Deal," he said. The rest of that summer became a slow unfolding of new routines. Weekends were for family trips, small adventures that didn't require approval from anyone outside our home. Daniel and I planned for Lila's future with quiet excitement, mapping out camps, school visits, and birthdays with a sense of agency that was exhilarating. Then came the moment that felt like a seal on everything we had worked for, a family dinner, ours alone in our apartment. Lila set the table, insisting on pink napkins and a single candle because candles make magic. Daniel carved the roast chicken with careful precision. Lila perched on a stool beside him, eyes wide with admiration. We talked about ordinary things, school projects, Daniel's work at the bakery, Lila's latest obsession with maps. And yet, beneath it all, there was an unspoken acknowledgement. We had survived something that could have broken us, and instead we had grown stronger, more connected. I looked at Daniel, then at Lila, and felt the weight of choice lift. This was the family I had chosen, the family I had fought for, the family that would define me not by blood, but by love, respect, and commitment. Even when Mom and Dad tried to reach out, their messages were met with calm boundaries. They were allowed to love from a distance, but no longer dictate our lives. We had learned, painfully and thoroughly, that love without respect is no love at all. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline and painted our living room gold, I watched Lila curl up on the couch, a book open on her lap, crayons scattered across the coffee table. Daniel sipped his tea beside me, fingers brushing mine lightly. Look at her, I whispered. We did it. Daniel nodded. We did, and we'll keep doing it every day. I smiled, the kind of a smile that reaches your bones. The battles, the confrontations, the tears, they were part of the story now, but they no longer controlled it. Our story was ours alone, written in laughter, in love, and in the quiet victories of everyday life. The past could whisper, could knock, could try to assert its authority, but within these walls, in this home, in this family, we were sovereign, and that was enough. We were free.